Our main guy never imagined that just by taking out 3 slimes, his stats would literally hit infinity. Not only did he master a whole list of top-tier magic, but he also realized he could swap his gender whenever he felt like it. You see, when he first got teleported here, his stats were actually worse than a regular person's. On the flip side, the blondie summoned alongside him was also level 1, but his stats were already at 999. So Blondie became the hero while our guy was dumped in the wasteland and left to rot. Just as he was wondering what to do next out of nowhere, 3 slimes lunged at him. Luckily, he had some moves. After an intense fight and taking them down, a system notification suddenly popped up. Reaching level 2 made sense, but what stayed weird was the symbol next to his stats. He had no clue what it meant. Right then, another window appeared. Turns out, as his level went up, he'd also learned a bunch of magic. When he clicked to check it out, he couldn't believe his eyes. A whole list of skills just popped up right in front of him. But while he was still processing it all, a system alarm suddenly went off. His magic bag didn't just have a tracking spell on it. It was also designed to lure in monsters for more attacks. And if he died, everything inside would automatically go back to the sender. It all clicked for him right then. Between the immediate slime attack and that junk weapon that broke instantly, it was obvious someone wanted him dead and fast. And that person was clearly the king. Even though our guy wasn't the hero before he left, the king's men gave him a magic bag, claiming it was full of gold to help him survive. But now it's clear the guy never planned on letting him live. Once he learned the system could force cancel the spell, he didn't hesitate for a second to wipe it out. Even though it felt a bit too easy to remove, he didn't think much of it at the time. His main priority was finding a place to crash. But he hadn't even taken 2 steps before the system warned him of extreme danger ahead. The area was heavily polluted with miasma, a toxic gas spread by the demon race that's lethal to humans. The system told him that by using just 1/3 of his total mana, he could use a purification spell to clear it all out. He didn't think twice and hit agree, figuring his level 2 mana pool wasn't that big anyway. But the second he did, what happened next completely blew his mind. He never expected a simple purification spell to be that insanely powerful. Once the dust settled, everything looked normal to him, but the system suddenly gave him a new notification. Meanwhile, back at the palace, the princess was fuming over the way he'd been treated. It was their mistake that summoned him and trapped him in this world. Why were they trying to kill him on top of that? She knew the wasteland he was sent to was home to a Demon King army base. But the king just brushed her off. Why waste time on a loser who couldn't even become a hero? Just then, an aide interrupted their argument. Apparently, the guards had just detected traces of top-tier holy magic. The king's first thought, this had to be the hero's doing. He started bragging about what a once-in-a-century talent he'd found, calling that kind of power absolutely breathtaking. He was feeling pretty smug about his decision until his subordinate totally rained on his parade. Turns out that purification magic didn't come from the south, where the hero was headed. It came from the far north, right in the middle of the forest where they had dumped our main guy. At that same moment, our guy was still standing there in total shock. He couldn't wrap his head around how he'd suddenly jumped to level 367. He hadn't even fought a real monster yet, which made him think that in this world you just level up by using magic. He took one more look at that weird symbol, couldn't figure it out, and just turned off the level up alerts. But then he remembered the system mentioned he'd used up 1/3 of his mana. When he opened his stats, his jaw dropped. In just 2.5 seconds, his mana bar was already completely full again. Obviously, his mana pool was something else entirely, but he had bigger fish to fry, like how to survive. After all, the king had banned him from ever entering a town. As if reading his mind, the system asked him if he wanted to use appearance-changing magic. Seeing he could even pick, his gender curiosity got the best of him, and he chose female. To his total surprise, he actually turned into a full-on girl. While it was kind of a trip, he knew this look wouldn't work for his long-term plans. So he switched back to being a guy, but this time he went with a pretty boy look. Just as he was feeling good about his new face, the system pinged him again, asking if he wanted to use teleportation magic to get to the nearest castle town. Now, how could he possibly say no to an offer like that? Soon as the teleportation circle glows, he finds himself in a strange new town. Our guy never expected it to be this easy. See, in his old world, teleportation was a legendary skill reserved for only the top-tier mages. But here, it seems like no big deal. After arriving in town, his first priority is clear. Hit up the Adventurers Guild to make a living. Just as he's wondering where to go, his system tells him to just head straight to the end of the road. Turns out his system even has built-in GPS. Once he makes it to the guild, he signs up immediately. Then he starts browsing for any quests he can handle. But while he's weighing his options, a voice nearby catches his attention. It turns out, a little girl is going around asking adventurers to escort her to the northern forest. She's offering a reward, but nobody's taking the bait. Every adventurer there has heard the rumors that the forest is a base for the Demon King's army. Yep, that's the exact place he was just exiled from. No matter how much the kid begs, everyone just ignores her. Seeing this, our hero feels a tug at his heart and steps up to take the job. After all, he just came from there, so he knows there's zero danger. Seeing a kind soul willing to help, especially such a handsome guy, the little girl is overcome with gratitude. But when he mentions using transfer magic to warp them there instantly, the whole room goes silent in shock. They can't believe this guy can actually use high-level warp magic. While he's standing there confused, a few uninvited guests approach and tell him to back away from the girl. It's the kingdom's knights. They're convinced he's a total fraud. You see, in this world, people who can use transfer magic are incredibly rare. Looking at him, they just don't see it. They suspect he's either a human trafficker or some kind of creep. Faced with their accusations, our guy tries to explain he's not a shady character. But since they don't believe him, he suggests they all just tag along. Eager to call his bluff, the group heads to a quiet corner. They warn him that if he tries anything funny, he's going straight to jail. Despite his own confusion, the MC makes his move. A magic circle appears, and in the next second, they're all standing in the middle of a forest. The knights are completely floored. Once they confirm they really are in the northern forest, they start getting real curious about who this guy is. They figure he must be some legendary high-ranking archmage. But he's not looking for the hype. He just says he's a total newbie who knows a tiny bit of magic. The knights aren't buying that for a second. They apologize sincerely, and just as our hero is feeling a bit flattered, the little girl suddenly panics. Now that she's here, she realizes something is very wrong. The mana in the forest has completely vanished. She remembers this place being overflowing with magical energy. Now, there's not even a hint of a magical beast. He's about to admit it was his doing, but his system screams a warning. It warns him that telling a demon about his evolution magic would be incredibly dangerous. Before he can even process that, the knights suddenly change their tune. They march toward the girl and draw their swords, demanding she show her true form. Turns out the knights have been getting reports lately. For days, a suspicious girl has been recruiting people to go to this forest. But everyone knows the Demon King has a base here. It's public knowledge. Going there is basically a suicide mission. As the tension reaches a breaking point, our guy looks at the little girl. He just can't see her as some terrifying demon. She looks like nothing more than a helpless cute kid. But just as that thought crosses his mind, everyone suddenly collapses to the ground, completely unable to fight. The girl expected the knights to fall, but what she didn't see coming was that one person is totally unaffected by her magic. She decides to finish him off herself, but in a split second, our hero narrowly dodges the attack. Even a fool would realize what's going on now. He knows he can't escape with 4 unconscious people weighing him down. Remembering his transfer magic, he uses it on the 4 of them without hesitation. By the time the girl reacts, it's already too late. She lunges at nothing but thin air, but she's baffled. Why didn't the guy use the magic? To save himself too, wow, it's like he has a death wish. But the hero only has one thing on his mind. That's right, he's going to take her on. He finally realizes just how special he is. Our guy never dreamed in a million years. Just after crossing over to this world, he ran straight into a monster at the level of the 4 heavenly kings. He thought he was a goner for sure, but he never expected that every single starter spell in his skill tree would be way more powerful than he ever imagined. With just a simple backstep, he shot back like he had wings, landing behind the enemy in an instant. But before he could even process what happened, the monster launched another attack. In a panic, our guy just picked a random earth wall spell to protect himself. Not only did it block the attack perfectly, but when he tried to go on the offensive with a basic whirlwind spell, it blew the enemy away so hard they couldn't even fight back. The monster was forced to use teleportation just to escape the crowd control. But seeing the monster right in his face again, our hero didn't have time to overthink things. In the heat of the moment, he clicked on a gravity spell, and man did he hit the jackpot. This time the power was so massive that the enemy couldn't move a single muscle. At this point, the monster was the one who was truly terrified. Because with a normal gravity spell, he should have been able to break free in a heartbeat. Not to mention, he has incredibly high magic resistance. But no matter how hard he tried to stand up or even use his own magic to cancel the effect, he realized it was completely useless. Even the teleportation that worked just a second ago had mysteriously stopped functioning. After trying every trick in the book, the most pathetic part was that he actually ran out of mana because he tried to cast too many spells, leaving him with absolutely zero fighting spirit. Realizing his fate was sealed, the monster actually took it quite well. He told the guy to just finish him off and make it quick. Hearing that, though, our hero actually lost any interest in killing him. When the monster heard he was being let go, he was completely blown away. He told the guy, "Look, I'm a demon. We're supposed to be sworn enemies with humans." But our hero didn't give a damn about any of that. Ever since the king exiled him to the wasteland for having low stats and failing to become the hero, his heart had already gone cold. To him now, demon lords or the demon race, none of it really matters. Even though the monster didn't know the guy's backstory, seeing that he was truly being spared, he finally relaxed and deactivated his beast form. But as soon as he let his guard down, the side effects of mana exhaustion kicked in and he passed out cold. When he finally woke up, he found himself inside a tent. Spotting our hero sitting by the entrance, he realized the truth immediately. The guy really had no intention of taking his life. Not only that, but he noticed his mana had been completely restored. Clearly, this was also thanks to our hero. When he voiced his confusion and the guy admitted to it, it really struck a chord with Fenris. After swearing he would never fight humans without a reason, and again, he begged the guy to let him follow him. Since our hero spared his life now belonged to him. Basically, he was offering himself up for free, and our hero agreed to take Fenris in. Meanwhile, the king was absolutely fuming. A few days ago, he sent the hero and a squad of soldiers to take down the demon lord's army. But halfway there, the whole unit was wiped out by some passing magic beasts. The hero had the nerve to act all high and mighty, blaming the whole thing on the soldiers. He claimed they pissed themselves as soon as they saw the beasts, and that he couldn't save the day all by himself. If the king hadn't done his own digging, he might have actually believed that load of garbage. The truth was, from start to finish, the hero hid at the very back, and then ran away like a coward the second the fighting started. But since the hero is their only hope for defeating the demon lord, the king just had to suck it up. This left the hero feeling pretty miserable too, because it wasn't that he didn't want to fight, it was that he literally couldn't. At level 1, his stats were 999, but he couldn't figure out why. Even after reaching level 91, his stats were still exactly the same, 999. Those stats make you a genius at level 1, but at level 91, you're basically trash. Trying to take on the demon lord's army with that is just a suicide mission. Early the next morning, our hero was heading to the Adventurers Guild to see if there were any jobs that paid well. But right then, a street vendor started trying to sell some vegetables to Fenris. Even though people were getting the wrong idea about them, our hero figured this identity was perfect for moving around under the radar. So he asked Fenris if he was okay with it, soon after they arrived at the Adventurers Guild. To their surprise, an emergency request had just come in. A massive pack of frenzy bears was currently in the north, heading straight for the town. Those were the exact same beasts that had crushed the hero's squad. Because it was an emergency, the reward for a successful hunt was 10 times the normal amount. But even after a while, nobody dared to take it since even the hero couldn't handle them. That included our hero, who didn't think he was stronger than the hero yet. But Fenris cut him off as soon as he said that. See, Fenris knew exactly how strong those frenzy bears were, and he could take down a whole pack of them by himself, let alone our hero who had easily defeated him. Our guy couldn't win the argument with Fenris, so they were quickly teleported to the area where the frenzy bears were sighted. But by some crazy coincidence, he happened to run into some old acquaintances, the knights from yesterday. Right now, they were surrounded by a frenzy bear, and they were getting their butts kicked. Just as they were pushed into a corner at the very last seconds, while the knights were still dazed, they realized the person saving them was our guy. Because of that, they felt pretty relieved. He actually managed to survive that encounter with the sister of the 4 heavenly kings, but they didn't really recognize Fenris. After all, she was in her little girl disguise before, but now she is a fierce young woman. When they asked who she was, our guy thought for a second and just said she was his traveling companion. Fenris was both annoyed and embarrassed hearing that. She was looking for a way to vent, and that bear just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Clearly, the bear was ready to surrender. Seeing how smart the beast was, Fenris suggested he take it in as a subordinate. Since this beast could take down the hero squad, taming it would be a huge feather in his cap. Thinking she had a point, our guy went ahead and used a control spell on the frenzy bear. To keep it from attacking people, and because it looked too scary, he decided to give it a makeover. It turned into a beast that looked like a rabbit. The knights saw the whole thing and were instantly blown away by him. They realized just how powerful he was, so they came up with a bold request, asking him to train them for battle. Turns out, ever since the hero squad got wrecked by that bear a few days ago, the so-called hero has been hiding in the castle. He claims he won't fight the Demon King until he has better support. So the king ordered the knights to level up until they can handle a frenzy bear on their own. But even with all 4 of them fighting together, they couldn't even take down one bear. That is why they are begging for help. But our guy knows his own limits. He barely understands his own powers, let alone how to teach others. While he was trying to figure out what to do, Fenris got super excited, muttering, this is great, over and over. Looks like she is really loving her current role." She was 100% down for this marriage, while the knights were reeling from the shock that he was married. Fenris suddenly switched gears and accepted the request for him. As his wife, she claimed she knew him best, saying he just can't ignore people in trouble. She was acting like a totally different person, clearly loving being called his wife. Seeing how hopeful the knights were, our guy agreed. But he didn't expect they had another favor. They wanted him to stay the night so they could start training immediately. While he was still hesitating, Fenris jumped at the chance. Seeing her so enthusiastic, our guy couldn't really say no. He never imagined his stats would somehow end up being infinite. A casual swing from him was like high-level magic. And that is not all. Even with a simple hoe borrowed from someone, he could take down a literal dragon. It turns out after agreeing to help the knights, training started the very next day. As a guy from another world with pure power but 0 combat experience, he thought he had nothing to teach. But to his surprise, these so-called knights were actually worse than normal people in a fight. Facing monsters, they either just ran or acted like total idiots. They couldn't even land a single hit. In the heat of the moment, he had to tell the mage to use a shield. It worked, but when he told the archer to counterattack, the arrows had 0 power behind them. Even crazier, just using one shield spell completely drained the mage's mana. This left the frontliners in a terrible spot. None of them could fight, and they couldn't even kill a wild boar. Finally, our guy had to step in and finish the boar off himself. As they kept training, the number of dead boars started piling up. Food wasn't an issue, but they had way too much of it. He decided to sell the extra meat to the Adventurer Guild. Doing it once or twice was fine, but what he didn't realize was that these boars were actually high-level magical beasts. By now, his name had reached the king's ears. The king sent the guildmaster to deliver a message, asking if our guy would serve under the hero. In exchange for loyalty, he promised wealth and status, basically whatever he wanted. Most people would jump at the chance, but he turned it down without a second thought. He couldn't forget how, when he first arrived, he was level 1 and weaker than a normal person, and the king just kicked him out into the wild. Meanwhile, the hero heard the news and assumed our guy would definitely accept and become his personal muscle for free. But a month went by, and the king's messengers showed up a few times, but they got rejected every single time. Our guy felt pretty helpless about it, but he didn't let it get to him and just went back to his training. He led the knights and the archers through their drills, telling them it's best to start with the basics, like target practice. As for the mage in the group, well, he gave her a ring that boosts her mana capacity. That way, she wouldn't just pass out after casting one single spell. Sybil originally put the ring on her middle finger. But little did he know the second he walked away, Sybil started having some bold ideas, just as she was trying to sneakily move it over to her ring finger. Both of the girls saw exactly what she was up to. Their faces turned bright red, and they were so embarrassed. For a second, they had no idea how to even explain themselves. She could only stand there blushing, totally lost for words. But while Fenris was busy focusing on protecting her husband, she had no idea someone was secretly watching them. This person had been staking out the place for a whole day. He was a high-ranking spy from the Demon King's army. He was originally sent to find out who used that insane purification magic. But he never expected to run into Fenris here. You have to remember back in the day, she was the fiercest, most legendary female warrior in the entire demon army. While he was wondering why she was hanging out with humans, he got spotted, so Minai had no choice but to show herself. She demanded to know what Fenris was doing in a place like this. But once she found out that Fenris had actually married this human guy, Minai completely lost it. She was stunned, but also incredibly curious. She tried to sneakily check our guy's power levels, but she got absolutely nothing. This was shocking because her appraisal eye could even see the stats of the Demon King himself, so she had to play it cool and ask around indirectly. She asked why there wasn't a single monster to be found in the area, especially in that northern forest. Fenris just gave a helpless little smile without giving her a straight answer. That mysterious attitude only made Minai even more suspicious. Finally, the truth came out. But it made Minai even more confused about Fenris. I mean, didn't that mean this guy basically killed her own brother? Turns out the demon army was setting up a formation there, getting ready to launch a massive raid on the surrounding area. They never saw it coming when our hero unleashed that purification magic. It completely destroyed their entire plan. That kind of overwhelming power is just terrifying. It's like he's some kind of unstoppable monster. Ever since he used that purification spell, the demons lost all contact with their unit. However, what our hero didn't realize was that Fenris had already figured it out a long time ago. But her brother was a proud warrior of the wolf tribe. He would have hated for anyone to pity him for his death. Plus, in this world where the strong eat the weak, she felt it was his own fault for not being good enough. More importantly, her feelings for her husband were the real deal. Man, if her brother were still alive, he'd probably die of pure rage just hearing her say that. And as luck would have it, the knights overheard that whole conversation. That's when it finally clicked for them. They realized Fenris was actually that high-ranking 4 Heavenly King-level monster they had seen before, but before our guy could even try to explain. Minai suddenly stepped up and challenged him to a spar. But what our hero didn't know was that even though she called it a spar, her real plan was to kill him right then and there. She figured if she couldn't win, she could just surrender since she claimed it was only for practice. She threw out a fake magic attack just to distract him, but it was all just a bait. Her real killer move was actually an attack coming from her younger brother. But to her absolute shock, our hero didn't even break a sweat and didn't overthink a thing. Luckily, after he let Minai go, he sat down and officially introduced Fenris's true identity to the Night Squad. He expected them to report her to the capital immediately, but to his surprise, they had no intention of doing that. Normally, you're supposed to report any demon you run into. But that doesn't apply to someone who isn't an enemy anymore. Everyone had seen how hard Fenris worked to help them train lately. There was no way they were going to betray someone who had done so much for them. Just as the tension started to fade right at that moment, they looked up and saw a whole swarm of wyverns appearing in the sky with Minai leading the charge. Turns out, this time she brought the most elite unit of the Demon King's army back for revenge. The blonde guy was absolutely terrified when he saw them. He recognized them instantly. This was the legendary Dragon Corps that had wiped out human armies many times before. As the Dragon Corps prepared to strike, the blonde guy was just frozen in shock. He never imagined that with just one single move, our guy would wipe out more than half of the Demon King's strongest Dragon Corps. Seeing her own comrades abandon her and run, she turned tail and took off too. But watching this, the short-haired girl actually felt a little bit of regret. If she had known, she would have thrown a farm tool into the chaos. She might have even scored the Dragon Slayer title for herself. Our hero told her not to worry though, and said it wasn't too late to try right now. And that brings us to the scene from the very beginning. The second she chucked that hoe into the air, our guy stacked every kind of buff spell on it. Instantly, that hoe turned into an intercontinental missile and blasted a giant dragon straight out of the sky. The short-haired girl was over the moon when she realized she actually got the Dragon Slayer title. But now that she had one, every single person in the Night Squad wanted to have a go at it too. Unfortunately, the dragons had already flown way out of range. Even our hero couldn't do anything about it once they were gone. Little did they know the Demon King had seen the whole thing, and he was getting very curious about this guy. He wasn't even a chosen hero, just a regular adventurer, and yet he could pull off magic on a whole different level. Thinking about this, the Demon King decided he had to step in personally. Our guy is just too OP. Once his stats hit infinity, he really didn't want to get dragged into the world's drama. So he just went ahead and used a massive wide-range teleportation spell. He was getting ready to pack up and move his entire house. That move left the hero completely shell-shocked. You see, this was a level of magic even the hero couldn't pull off. Not to mention, our guy wasn't just teleporting himself, he was moving a whole mansion, and he was doing it all on his own. Just as the hero thought he was being totally unrealistic the very next second, there he was, traveling light, and standing right in the middle of this monster-infested forest. Once he realized the guy's wife was an old friend of his, it clicked. He immediately suspected the visitor's true identity. He might actually be the Demon King. After all, his wife used to be part of the Demon King's army. She was the sister of one of the 4 Heavenly Kings. So he aggressively pointed his sword right at him. He demanded to know his motive, warning that if he didn't like the answer, he'd cut him down right then and there. This threat left the Demon King completely baffled. Seeing Rosa so confident actually spooked him. Thinking she had some kind of ace up her sleeve, he immediately backed down and said he'd leave right away. Hearing that Rosa calmly said she wouldn't press the matter and told the Demon King to get the hell out of there. Shortly after the Demon King took off, our lead came rushing over. It turns out he'd sensed a massive surge of magic power earlier. When he checked the signature, it hit him like a ton of bricks. The visitor was none other than the Demon King himself. But what really threw him for a loop was something else. Rosa had actually pointed her sword at the Demon King. Once he said that, Rosa's jaw dropped. She was completely stunned. Turns out she had no idea that guy was the Demon King. The next morning, the Demon King showed up again, but this time for a formal visit. But our guy didn't break a sweat. He was confident in his own power, so he calmly invited the Demon King inside to take a seat. While the Demon King was a bit surprised by how cool the guy was, he didn't beat around the bush once they sat down. He straight up told him that his subordinates had been bullied by our lead. His voice had a sharp, questioning edge to it, like he was waiting to see how the guy would talk his way out of it. Yet our lead didn't even flinch. This reaction was a first for the Demon King. After all, very few people could stay that composed in front of him. So he decided not to push it any further. It was exactly what he expected. Instead, he asked why he hadn't joined the human army and chose to live in seclusion in this middle-of-nowhere corner instead. But our hero's answer was simple. He wasn't even a human from this world. Plus, he didn't even understand why the two sides were at war in the first place. Seeing that he was genuinely clueless, the Demon King decided to fill him in. Turns out the first Demon King was just like him, part of a group that came from another world. However, his goal was world domination. At that time, the demon race was being brutally persecuted by humans. So when he called for action, the war between demons and humans kicked off. Now he's the 12th generation Demon King. But as they say, time changes everything. Even though he had no interest in ruling the world, he couldn't just hand over a powerhouse like our lead. Someone who posed a major threat to demons, right into the hands of the human race. After revealing his true form, the Demon King extended the invitation once more. But that kind of intimidating pressure meant nothing to our guy. After he repeated that he had no intention of helping anyone, the Demon King actually laughed. It seemed our lead was just as stubborn as he'd heard, having already turned down the king's invitation. With his worries finally put to rest, the Demon King got ready to leave. But that didn't mean he was giving up for good. Just when Rosa thought the nightmare was finally over, she woke up the next morning to find the Demon King raving about the food, while warmly inviting her to sit right next to him. Even if he's plotting something, who does this guy think he is? The Demon King didn't think much of it, though. He was surprised to see Rosa had such a reserved side. Little did she know, Rosa's nightmare was only just beginning. No matter where she went, the Demon King was right there like a shadow, following her around and staging all these coincidental run-ins. She never would have guessed it, but the Demon King had actually caught feelings for her. Soon enough, word that a demon was constantly hanging out at our hero's place reached the king's ears. No wonder he wouldn't accept my invitation, the king thought. He's actually planning to join the demons. Just as the king was about to deploy his troops, the hero stepped up and took charge without hesitation. He told the king to give him the men, deciding to handle this battle himself this time. He vowed that if the guy wouldn't listen, he'd just cut him down on the spot. It wasn't long before the human army arrived at our lead's house. Looking at the situation, it was obvious they weren't there for a friendly chat. The hero didn't waste any time either giving him an ultimatum, either become his subordinate and go hunt the Demon King, or be branded a spy for the Demon King's army and executed right then and there. Surrounded by so many soldiers, the hero was feeling incredibly cocky. He thought he looked like a total boss and was about to land himself a powerful new lackey. Just when he was sure the guy would cave, our lead gave him a flat-out refusal. After a moment of total disbelief, the hero blew his top. But killing the guy wouldn't actually do him any favors. While he was trying to figure out how to force him into submission, his eyes landed on the knights nearby. He declared that he had the authority to arrest all 4 of them for treason, and that was the final straw. That crossed our hero's line. He made it clear that he didn't want any trouble, he was just going to use his teleportation magic and vanish. The 4 knights immediately asked our boy to take them along too. They were done with this trashy kingdom anyway. Hearing this, the hero thought the MC was just talking smack, totally ignoring the mess they were in. But our guy didn't feel like wasting his breath. A second later, he flashy as ever triggered a massive teleportation spell. The hero was absolutely floored by that insane amount of mana. The soldiers just stood there in shock, staring at the giant crater left behind. They couldn't believe it. Not just the house, but the entire vegetable garden had been warped away too. but there was no time to process it. A soldier rushed up to tell the hero they'd found a demon, the one who'd been hanging around the MC lately. After the hero barked the order to seize him, the demon lord was initially confused about what was going down. But looking at the wreckage, he realized exactly who caused this mess. He never actually planned on being an enemy to the humans, but he just changed his mind. He ordered the entire demon army to gear up and launch a full-scale assault on the human kingdom. While the humans were panicking, the demon army got some wild news. The fearless hero, who was supposed to be a legend, it had actually tucked tail and run away like a total coward. The MC never expected this guy to be such a sore loser. Just because our boy wouldn't agree to be his lackey, that jerk held a massive grudge. He was willing to sacrifice every life in the kingdom just to summon a Mijin to take out the MC. But after seeing his girl get hurt, the MC finally stopped holding back. A bit earlier, the demon lord had led his forces against the kingdom. Thanks to that useless blonde hero doing nothing, most of the land was taken. The king had to make a desperate gamble, gathering every mage in the country to pool their power and cast a massive purification spell. It pushed the demons back, but everyone was still on edge. That's because the spell only lasts for 3 months. In 3 months, the demons will be back for blood. Meanwhile, the kingdom's elite forces were all in comas from mana exhaustion. The king himself almost kicked the bucket and needs at least a year to recover. The first princess knew the kingdom was doomed if she didn't step up. To save her people, she took decisive action and seized control of the throne as regent. Her first move, stripping that blonde jerk of his hero title. Then she called in the royal prophet to find a way out of this mess. The prophet revealed that the real hero had already arrived and was currently in the western part of the kingdom. That's right, the true hero is our MC with the infinite stats. Right now, he's just living a chill life with his wife. Even the knights who followed him are enjoying the peaceful vibes. The brown-haired guy farms, and the redhead rents out horses to help with the bills. Rosa and Bolano are basically just freeloading, but Fenris is totally cool with it. As the lady of the house, she feels it's her duty to do the heavy lifting. Their happy life is enough to make anyone jealous. One day, the MC takes Fenris to the market. He's so grateful for everything she does and wants to show her some love. Suddenly, something catches his eye. "I bought this for you, Fenris. It's a gift. Here, let me put it on you, okay?" Fenris was over the moon. That night, she decided to give our boy a very special reward. But little did they know danger was closing in. When the blonde hero found out he was fired, he was absolutely livid. But the soldiers were done with his fake attitude. They tossed his bags on the ground and told him to get lost. Driven by humiliation and rage, the blonde jerk snuck into the royal treasury, looking for a weapon to crush the demon lord. He wanted everyone to beg for his forgiveness, especially the MC. He blamed the MC. If it wasn't for that flashy magic, no one would have known he was a fraud. Suddenly, a voice whispered in his ear. It told him if he wanted power, he had to set it free. Following the voice, he found a hidden chamber. In the center sat a massive sword. If he pulled it out, the voice promised to grant his every wish. When he hesitated, the voice turned mocking and full of contempt. That was the final straw. He yanked the sword out. There was a deafening boom, and once the dust settled, a woman in white robes was floating in the air. She introduced herself as Haya, the all-powerful Majin of light and darkness. Since he freed her, she offered him 3 wishes. The Majin's power was finally back. Meanwhile, the princess was putting a team together to find the MC. But suddenly, out of nowhere, a pitch-black collar appeared around everyone's neck. The princess's heart sank. She knew exactly what this was. Turns out these are called condemnation collars. They are the price for the Majin's wishes. That's the ultimate price you have to pay. The moment the wish actually comes true, the person wearing that collar is as good as dead. Legend has it that a long time ago, a king of this realm made a wish to this very demon to wipe out the demon lord. But nobody expected the cost. History books make it crystal clear it cost the lives of half the people in the entire kingdom. It took countless sacrifices to finally seal that demon inside a stone pillar and put an end to the disaster. The princess realized someone had broken the seal and immediately sent her men to intercept the intruder. But it was already too late, because that blondie had already made a wish to the demon to have our hero killed. And get this, if taking down a measly demon lord cost half a kingdom, imagine the price for a guy with infinite stats. If our hero actually goes down, then this whole kingdom is totally toast. Right now, our hero is on a date with Fenris when suddenly his system gives him a heads up. A demon is closing in. Right on cue, the demon appears right behind him. Just as his auto defense is about to kick in, Fenris jumps in to protect her man. Seeing this, our hero's face goes dark, and he desperately tries to cast a healing spell on her. But the system hits him with the bad news. The wounds are too deep. The magic isn't working. At this point, the demon still doesn't realize how much he's messed up and keeps attacking. He has no idea he's basically signed his own death warrant. The attack doesn't even scratch our hero. Instead, he learns the spell instantly. Is that all you've got? The demon never saw this coming. The man absolutely wrecking him has stats that are literally off the charts, pure infinity. With just raw physical strength, our hero was dealing damage to a creature that's supposed to be immune to physical attacks. And that's not all. Even his ultimate dark magic, a blast that could easily wipe out an entire country, was nothing in front of this man. He literally crushed it with his bare hands. This demon, who's supposed to be the stuff of nightmares, was being handled like a helpless little chick. He tried his best defensive magic, but it was like tissue paper. Looking at the monster in front of him, the demon finally felt true terror. He started deeply regretting the fact that he just killed the hero's wife. But even as he begged for mercy over and over, our hero wasn't giving him an inch. He could have ended him with a single blow, but he controlled his power perfectly, refusing to let him die. While the demon was being beaten within an inch of his life, Fenris suddenly opened her eyes. She couldn't believe she was still alive. It wasn't until Rosa explained it to her that she realized it was all thanks to the magic her man had just used. See, when she was dying, our hero didn't actually have a healing spell strong enough to save her. But after taking the demon's hits, thanks to his ability to learn any spell he's hit with, he automatically mastered the demon's magic. Since this demon knew every spell in the book, our hero successfully learned time manipulation, rewinding her time to the moment right before she died. Once she understood everything, seeing her man go berserk for her sake and pummel that demon felt pretty satisfying at first. But the warm feelings didn't last long, because the scene reminded her of when she and our hero first met. Back then, she was the one with every intention of killing him. But after she lost just because she said she surrendered, he spared her without a second thought. And now, because of her, he was about to throw away his own principles. Suddenly, his rage just stopped. Fenris stepped in because she didn't want him to change who he was just for her. After all he'd promised, he would never kill someone who gave up. Hearing those words, our hero instantly lost the urge to kill. At that moment, only Fenris mattered, so he'd agree to anything she asked. However, even though he spared the demon, he wasn't about to play nice. But the demon soon realized he'd overthought things. Since Fenris was still alive, our hero didn't feel like killing him anymore. But letting a demon like that just walk away would be like letting a tiger back into the wild. While our hero was weighing whether to seal him back in the treasury, he peered right into the demon's memories. The demon was absolutely floored. He couldn't believe the hero knew everything. But the answer was simple. Our hero just wanted to know why he was attacked. So he naturally picked up a memory reading spell on the fly. That's when he saw it the hero was the one who really wanted him dead. The demon was just a tool to grant a wish. But still, he wasn't innocent. If they just sealed him away again, history would probably just repeat itself in the future. As our hero was thinking about what to do with him, Fenris came up with a plan. She suggested that from now on, the demon should be the hero's servant. On the surface, she said it was just like how he spared her back then. So now he can be your servant too. Just trust me on this. He can protect you from now on. But our hero knows her better than anyone. He could see right through her. She just wanted the demon's insane power on their side. Why let such a powerful fighter go to waste? After calling her out on it, our hero realized it actually wasn't a bad idea. With him keeping a close eye, the demon wouldn't get a single chance to cause trouble again. Sau khi bắt anh ta thề rằng từ giờ sẽ không bao giờ tước đoạt mạng sống của ai nữa, điều này đã khiến tên ma nhân hoàn toàn sững sờ. Trong thế giới của hắn, từ cổ chí kim vốn chỉ có luật rừng kẻ mạnh ăn thịt kẻ yếu, làm gì có tiền lệ cho sự tha thứ. Lời đề nghị của nam chính thực sự đã mang lại cho hắn một cú sốc chưa từng có. Từ xưa đến nay, nhân tộc vốn chẳng bao giờ dễ dàng buông bỏ chấp niệm và thù hận, huống chi đây còn là mối thù sinh tử. Nghĩ đến đây, hắn không chút do dự mà đồng ý với nam chính. Hắn rất mong chờ vào những hành động sau này của cậu. Với tư cách là một đảng vượt trội sở hữu mọi quyền năng trên thế gian, hắn muốn tận mắt chứng kiến con đường mà nam chính sẽ đi. Sau khi thấy rằng từ nay sẽ toàn tâm toàn ý phụng sự nam chính, ai ngờ đó cũng chỉ là lời nói bên ngoài. Thật ra là vì hắn đã lo phải lòng nam chính rồi. Cùng lúc đó, đệ nhất công chúa cũng đột nhiên phát hiện ra chiếc vòng cổ tội lỗi của mình đã được tháo bỏ. Vất vả lắm mới đến được thị trấn Cục Tây, kết quả là còn chưa kịp đi tìm anh hùng thì cuộc khủng hoảng diệt vong của đất nước họ đã tự động được giải quyết. Và lý do rõ ràng chỉ có một, đó là tên ma nhân đã thất bại trong việc thực hiện điều ước. Trong khi đó, tên anh hùng cũng đang phải đối mặt với nguy hiểm. Đám binh lính bên ngoài đã phát hiện ra chính hắn là kẻ đã đột nhập vào điện thờ báu vật. Đó là lý do khiến phong ấn của ma nhân bị giải trừ. Và nếu bị bắt hắn chắc chắn sẽ bị xử tử. Rõ ràng là ma nhân đã hứa với hắn rằng sau khi thực hiện điều ước sẽ quay lại. Ngay lúc tên anh hùng không biết phải làm sao, thì đột nhiên từ trong điện thờ báu vật xuất hiện một luồng hạt khí. Không kịp trở tay Zia, đã bị luồng hạt khí đó xâm nhập vào cơ thể. Khi tên anh hùng nhìn lại hắn kinh hãi, nhận ra Zia trông cứ như một con người hoàn toàn khác. Ngay sau đó, cùng với sự xuất hiện của một ma trận Zia, trước mắt cũng đã thay đổi trang phục. Nhưng nên nhớ rằng, trong ấn tượng của tên anh hùng, Zia rõ ràng chỉ là một kẻ mù ma pháp, không hề biết một chút phép thuật nào. Thế nhưng, đối mặt với điều này, Zia không thèm trả lời trực tiếp, mà lại quay sang cảm ơn tên anh hùng. Cảm ơn vì hắn đã giải khai phong ấn của tên ma nhân khởi thủy đó để một đại pháp sư bóng tối như ông ta có thể tái xuất nhân gian. Để đáp lại ông ta quyết định sẽ thấy mặt ma nhân thực hiện điều ước của tên anh hùng, cũng chính là sức mạnh mà hắn luôn khao khát có được. Ngay khi lời vừa dứt, cơ thể của tên anh hùng đột ngột biến đổi trong nháy mắt, chiều cao của hắn đã đâm thủng cả trần nhà. Đợi đến khi định thần lại, hắn đã biến thành một con quái vật khổng lồ. Và ngay giây tiếp theo, hắn liền bị biến thành vật cười. Mũ phù thủy này chẳng thể ngờ được rằng mình đã dùng hắc ma pháp để biến tên anh hùng thành ma thần, để sự tồn tại mạnh mẽ nhất của phe chính nghĩa phải làm việc cho mình, rồi từ đó dùng nó để chinh phục thế giới. Thế nhưng ngay giây sau đó, mụ ta lại phát hiện ra ma pháp của mình bỗng dưng bị ai đó xóa sạch một cách quái dị. Cảnh tượng này khiến mụ ta đỏ người ra ngay lập tức, nên biết rằng mụ chính là ma pháp sư mạnh nhất thế gian cơ mà. Vậy mà trên đời này lại có kẻ có thể xóa bỏ ma pháp của mụ một cách thần không biết quỷ không hay. Ngay lúc mụ ta đang nghi ngờ về cuộc đời, thì những lời của người đàn ông trước mắt đã làm mụ chết lặng. Tuy nhiên mụ chẳng thể nào ngờ tới, năng lượng của nam chính thực chất là vô hạn. Ngày hôm đó, nam chính đang cùng dàn hậu cung của mình đi hẹn hò trong thành phố. Nhưng đúng lúc này, bầu trời bỗng vang lên tiếng sấm sét dữ dội. Ngay sau đó, một con khỉ đốt vàng khổng lồ từ trên trời rơi xuống trên vai. Nó còn có một người phụ nữ bí ẩn. Mụ ta tuyên bố sẽ tiêu diệt toàn bộ hoàng tộc nơi đây. Ngay khi người dân đang hoảng sợ chạy tán loạn, mũ phù thủy cũng đã liếc mắt thấy mục tiêu, chính là đế nhất công chúa đang được đội vệ binh bảo vệ. Thấy vậy, mụ ta liền vung tay, một cái đám vệ binh liền ngã gục như diều đứt dây. Nam chính đang định tiến lại xem thử thì chẳng ngờ lại nhìn thấy ma nhân Shia ở đây. Hóa ra lý do anh ta xuất hiện ở đây là vì cảm nhận được một luồng dao động vô cùng tà ác. Và quả nhiên đúng như dự đoán, anh ta nói với nam chính rằng bản thể của con quái vật này thực chất là con người, chỉ là bị mụ phù thủy phía trên biến thành như vậy. Và mụ phù thủy này cũng chính là ma pháp sư mạnh nhất trong lịch sử thế giới. Nhưng vì những năm cuối đời mụ ta đã dấn thân vào hắc ma pháp cấm kỵ, nên không lâu sau đã bị anh hùng thời đó tiêu diệt. Nhưng sau khi thể xác bị hủy diệt, linh hồn oán hận của mụ vạn ngoan cố tồn tại. Vì thế mụ đã bị anh hùng dùng thánh kiếm phong ấn trong điện thờ báu vật. Thật trùng hợp là đó cũng chính là nơi mà anh ta từng bị phong ấn trước đây. Cho nên sau khi tên anh hùng hiện tại giải khai phong ấn của anh ta, mữ phù thủy cũng theo đó mà hồi sinh. Vốn dĩ lúc đầu Shia không định can thiệp, nhưng dù sao bây giờ anh ta cũng đã thể sẽ phụng sự nam chính. Hơn nữa, việc mụ phù thủy bị xông ra cũng là do sự sơ suất của anh ta. Vì vậy anh ta cầu xin nam chính đứng ra tay để một mình anh ta giải quyết mụ phù thủy này. Cùng lúc đó, đế nhất công chúa cũng đang ngàn cân treo sợi tóc. Lúc này bên cạnh cô chỉ còn lại một vệ binh duy nhất. Nhưng đối với mụ phù thủy thì chẳng khác nào hư vô. Mụ phù thủy nhận ra chính Shia đã ngăn cản mình, liền hỏi tại sao. Ma nhân đáng sợ đến mức nào trong quá khứ, mữ phù thủy biết rõ hơn ai hết. Thế nên điều này khiến mụ quyết định đích thân ra tay. Giây tiếp theo, mụ liền tung ra đòn ma pháp tấn công mạnh mẽ nhất của mình. Thế nhưng điều khiến mụ không tài nào tin nổi là chỉ bằng một tay Shia đã chặn đứng đòn tấn công đó. Lý do đơn giản là đối với một ma nhân như anh ta, bất kỳ ma pháp nào của thế giới này cũng đều vô dụng. Và điều đó bao gồm cả ma pháp của mụ phù thủy. Nhưng mụ ta lại không tin vào cái quái ác này. Ai bảo trong ma pháp không có tấn công vật lý chứ? Chẳng hạn như tên anh hùng đã được mụ dùng ma pháp cường hóa. Ngay khi mụ phù thủy ra lệnh cho tên anh hùng tiêu diệt Shia, mữ cũng tranh thủ dùng hạt ma pháp để gây nhiễu. Ngay lúc mụ tưởng rằng như vậy là có thể hạ gục được Shia, thì kết quả lại khiến mụ một lần nữa kinh hồn bất vía. Even throwing both physical and magic attacks at him did absolutely nothing. Realizing this, the witch decided to play her trump card. She summoned all the ancient evil energy buried deep underground and channeled it straight into the hero. And man, was it super effective. In no time at all, the hero mutated into a massive, terrifying beast. The sheer pressure coming off him was enough to make the princess choke. The thought of a monster like that rampaging through a town is pure nightmare fuel. But just as the witch was wondering how Shay could possibly counter a move like this, yep, our main man stepped in and dispelled her magic just like that. while the witch stood there in total shock. Shay was actually feeling a bit frustrated. She couldn't believe it still came down to the MC having to bail her out. But she asked him to at least let her handle the final blow. As soon as the words left her mouth, she turned all that bottled-up rage right toward the witch. The witch, still busy questioning her entire existence, was caught completely off guard, as Shay's magic completely engulfed her. Her soul was snatched away right then and there, making sure she'd never cause trouble ever again. With the witch gone, the hero and Theo finally returned to their normal selves. But Shay wasn't finished just yet. The next second, she literally swallowed the witch who'd been compressed into a ball whole. Her plan was to keep her in Gigi, straighten her out properly, and then release her to serve the MC later on. The princess saw the whole thing go down, and right then it clicked. The MC was exactly the person she'd been searching for. After thanking him for saving the kingdom from total disaster, she wasted no time asking our MC if he'd be down to take over as the hero. See, just a little while back, she had actually fired that lazy, good-for-nothing hero. She tells him that if he steps up as the new hero, he'd basically have all the fame and fortune he could ever want. But our guy isn't biting. He turns her down on the spot, saying he's perfectly happy living a quiet life with his harem. So he says his goodbyes to the princess and heads back home. But as it turns out, the knights are waiting there because they need to talk to him about something. They're looking to expand the territory and set up some more farmland. The plan is to sell the harvest in town and use the profits to help support the MC. Since it's a pretty low-stakes request, he sees no reason to say no. Meanwhile, Bolano decides she wants to teach at the nearby magic academy. She doesn't want to feel like she's just dead weight to him, even though he totally doesn't care. He backs her up anyway. Seeing everyone find their calling makes him start thinking, maybe it's time he opened up a shop of his own in this world. Fenris is of course 10,000% on board with the idea. She immediately promises to bring all her friends by as customers. This leaves the MC a bit stunned. I mean, aren't all her friends literally demons, like Bellari and Blossom? But little does he know this one decision to start a business. Next, they lured the Demon King over once again. Meanwhile, inside a prison,